Well, it's 10 o'clock at night, and my kid just went to sleep. What else is there for a very depressed and equally overwhelmed and extremely lonely father to do than talk about some clowns? This is a coffee, and that is Uncle Charlie, specifically the 2020 version, the remake. Now, there was a whole customization process to this thing. We essentially, and by we I mean me, along with a lot of other people that actually contributed to this, at least in some way, we all worked together to make it from the admittedly piece of shit that it was. The 2020 Charlie remake, at least physically, is not great at all. And we turned it into a masterful recreation of the best parts of both the 2010 and 2020 Uncle Charlies. So, here's a video about that. Now, yeah, I got this when it came out originally in 2020. Like the day Spirit opened, I forced my mom to drive over there and grab me a Charlie. And that's that one. It's had a lot of problems since Seasonal Visions was sort of rough that year when it came to like the first batch of their shit. Like how Peekaboo Clown had some of the worst face deformations. And so did Charlie. Charlie had some really bad ones along with just some other jank that unfortunately mine got hit really hard with. This was the original head for it. Yeah, this was the first head I ever got. Honestly, physically, not bad at all, especially in comparison to the other ones. I currently have 3 heads. This one, obviously, this was my first one. This one, unfortunately, the eyes don't work anymore because my dumbass was like, what if I plugged it into the mouth to make it blink with the words? And I popped the LEDs. So this one, the eyes don't work, but the mouth still moves, obviously. There's the second one, which is currently on Charles himself, which is the one that we obviously repainted. And then there's a third one in my cabinet that's essentially just my spare head. It's just a head that has the eyes and the mouth working. It's a normal one. It looks pretty good. Originally, also, mine, after a while, unfortunately started having relay switch issues, where he would start resetting to the side and sometimes not resetting at all, so he would just kind of stop in a random position. I don't really know why he started having those issues, but what I did is I just sort of repositioned the motor, because how the micro switches work is that they will stop in the same place that they began. So it does mean that his head is offset so that it turns a little bit more this way than it does that way, but I don't really mind. A lot of SVI props that turn like that are a little bit like that, but regardless, his head resets straight, which I like that, because I'm a bitch. Now, first thing we had done with this fella, or, well, not me, but is the mask. As you can see, it's, very professionally painted, as opposed to that. I'll throw up a comparison right now. Yeah, it was pretty bad. This one is fucking amazing though. And yeah, so the person who repainted the mask for me was my, at this point, pretty damn good friend, Jovanir Haunts, who, being a stand-up fellow, he recorded a segment talking about how he, what all he did and the everything like that.
So I started this project, the Uncle Charlie repaint thing. I was showing off my Flesh Eater repaint, which is like really cool. I'll throw up a picture now. Oh, look, there's the Flesh Eater repaint. And here comes Dr. Conqueror, and he's like, "Hey, I have this spare Uncle Charlie head, and the mech's all messed up. And here's throwing up some pictures of it before I did anything to it, like just the mask." I was like, "Oh yeah, this could be fun." So I took this and I was like, "What the heck do I do with this thing now that I have it?" And funny thing, Seasonal Visions actually seems to use a lot of the same color paint over and over and over again, because the color of Uncle Charlie's skin, I actually ended up using the same color with Flesh Eater blended with another color. Just it ends up looking like more realistic flesh than anything. And it ended up matching with the color of the hands, so I was pretty happy about that. That wasn't intentional, by the way. I didn't have the hands to reference. And with this, I wanted it to be original. I wanted it to be the original Charlie, along with the new 2020 Charlie, along with something new in the middle. I wanted to try something new. I put veins on it because I thought, hey, veins would be really cool. When I'm starting on the skin, especially if it's like a clown and there's not much else to it, so I like overdid like a lot of like the shadowing and everything like that, because in the end it shows up under the makeup, but if I did it regularly it wouldn't show up as well. And then I was like, okay, makeup time, and the makeup just looks awesome. For some reason, the 2020 Charlie does not have like any makeup. It's kind of just the whole head is one thing. But obviously in my repaint, and you'll see the side of the head, there's different sides, and it's like you can see like, okay, this is where the makeup ends, and you can see this is like where his head is. So I always, whenever I do repaints for clowns, I always make sure that you can clearly see where they put on the makeup, but it ends like usually around the ears and everything like that. So they'll do a little bit around the ears, but everything here is skin. So once I had the paint down, obviously I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Uncle Charlie has blood dripping down from his mouth. So the biggest thing that bothers me about Charlie, I think, is the fact that he just kind of bleeds from his gums. So I was like, okay, when I redo the blood, at first I'm going to do it with a good blood. So I mixed up a mixture, and that was cool. I made really nice blood. Yeah, this looks good. So I wanted to make sure that the blood didn't just look like paint, like brushed on paint, and I wanted it to make sense. So it ended up being, I painted his teeth with blood because that makes sense. Otherwise, I don't know where the heck the blood is coming from or why it's there. And the blood is actually like a liquid, and I ended up having, I had to help it a little bit, but it did actually end up naturally dripping down, and it's such a cool effect. So once the blood was done, I was like, wow, this is really good. And it gained a ton of popularity. I've had a lot of people ask me to repaint their Uncle Charlies anyways. So I'm like, hey, Dr. Cochter, how does this look? And he's like, wow, that's really good. Ship it over. And so I ship it over in the same packaging, because that's my policies. I ship it back to you in the same packaging you sent it to me, which was like 8,000 packing peanuts. I was really happy that he was happy with it, and then like we were in a call and we had a few other people who had modified their Charlies in the past. You know, you have to fix the eyes, you have to glue the eyes to the actual shell so then they aren't just like bug eyes and they're looking off to the side, because Seasonal Visions items have an issue with that. And we ended up helping Dr. Cochter give him like angry brows, because that's how the original Charlie was. So that's kind of my part. I was like, I influenced the project, as in like I repainted Charlie, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, I'll like, yeah, it'd be cool to see how they change it. Like, but outside of that, I really didn't do anything else. It was just the mask. So yeah, I don't take credit for anything else. It was just the mask. Anyways, yeah, that's it. My segment's probably a little bit too long, but there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Hans. Now, if you could not tell, he kind of doesn't credit himself as much as he probably should. Without this mask repaint, I honestly don't know how far this project as a whole would have gone. Now, that was, as I stated, the first step in the whole process. The second step was just general body fixing upping. This I did myself. What I did is I filled out the body more so that he's not like scrawny as shit. Firstly, I cut off these buttons, or these Velcros, and then made it so that it only straps to these two, so that the shirt's a little bit bigger, so that I could compensate for all of the pool noodle, like, padding I put in here. It looks bad like this, but this is about the only way I can get it to look natural when the shirt's on. It makes him look, at least, like, it makes him look chubby. And I like it, because that's kind of what Charlie is supposed to look like. Hold on, I gotta fucking put this shit back on. God fucking damn it. Yeah, repositioning everything sort of sucks. But I did that, and then I just did some minor adjustments with the clothes, the placing of everything and such. Just kind of cleaned everything up. and I filled out the arms. They are a lot thicker than they were. I did a similar thing. I just kind of put pool noodles over the pre-existing padding in there, so now they're a lot beefier, and they look like, you know, arms. So I didn't do anything with the bucket, but I did also paint his nails like the original ones were painted. This is not like paint, it's just nail polish, and like not the cleanest of things, but I mean, I don't think it really matters, because he's kind of supposed to look like he's kind of been chilling in this costume for a while, so, and you can kind of see that with how Jovenier did everything on the face. If you look very closely, you can see little marks and such where the face paint is supposed to look like it is kind of like sweating off, and I think that's a really cool detail, so I sort of went along with that for here and didn't make it look like perfect. Going back to the mask, yeah, I had to take the mask off the mechanism itself to ship it to him so that it wouldn't be as heavy, and also so that Jovenier wouldn't have to go through the process of taking the mask off itself. That mask was extremely deformed when I had gotten it, unfortunately, but all things considered, between how we painted it, how we kind of stiffened it up a little bit, because with all this paint, it makes the latex like thicker, so it keeps its form a lot better. And also I filled out the face so that it's a lot more even, and it looks really good now. It looks way better than it did. I'll show a picture of what it looked like originally. Yeah, that was the same mask. It's crazy, huh? Now, what was essentially the final step of this process was painting miscellaneous things, and this I, of course, did not do myself. I, unfortunately, am not skilled enough in painting. And Jovenier also did not do this. I didn't feel like shipping out this shit just for that. But thankfully, I'm pretty close personal friends with a genius when it comes to painting and art. So, she, being the gracious person she did, painted the shoes and painted the lollipop. I'll show the lollipop first. We kind of wanted to go for a look much more reminiscent of the original lollipop on 2010 Charlie, because that one generally looked a lot better. If you've seen the paint job for the original new lollipop, it's very bland and bad looking. But this, between the more like coarse texturing and the like more vibrant colors that stick out a lot better, it looks like something I would actually want to eat. She did a very good job at that. And then onto the shoes. Holy shit, they are so good. So what she did is she made the soles a different color. She painted the laces and gave shading under the laces. She made the shoes themselves two-tone so that you see how there's this little bump right here. Back here, that's all a different color than the rest of the shoe. And then you can see, obviously, the yellow borders just to kind of go along more with his color palette. And black aglets. But, yeah. And then we also detailed this. So if you could see, it looks a little scuffed up and, like, dirty. It's not, like, an obscene amount of dirt, like some Charlie shoes. Not throwing shade at anybody. But it's just detailing to make it look a little bit less pristine, because that's not really what it's supposed to look like. So she did a magnificent job with that. Here's a bit better picture of the shoe, along with a few words from the painter herself.
I painted.
Another thing I had done that I hadn't mentioned yet was, it's like a small thing, but I kind of made a cardboard frame for his hat, so it wasn't just being held up by like the fabric itself, and it actually had something in there holding it up so it didn't just kind of fold over. It's obviously not straight, but that's intentional, as like the rim is curvy, so like it's like a goofier looking hat, you know? So I like it. It looks a lot better, it looks a lot more filled out, and it's not as flat. And another thing that I had done that I had not mentioned yet was I reposed the arms. Most new seasonal Visions props have posable arms, so I took advantage of that. Originally, both of his arms were kind of straight out like that, if you can see. And it looked really unnatural. So what I did was I posed this arm down a fair bit, the bucket arm, so that it looks a little bit more similar to the more casual way the original Charlie was holding his. And then I posed this lollipop arm up a lot more so that it looks a lot more natural and less robotic, you know? This is much more of a natural way that a person would actually hold a lollipop. So it generally just looks a lot better on him. And then here's a side profile, so you can sort of get an idea of how he's a little bit more like chubby. And yeah, I have a couple of strands of hair going in front of his ear too. So now I'm gonna edit in a couple of videos and like pictures from the like mid process of this, because this took about 20 days in total. Because the first thing that was done was the mask repaint, and then everything else got like sequentially completed. So this took about 20 days in total to completely create. There's a couple of pictures like between that time that I have, along with a video of me on a call with a couple of other people, including Jovanir, as he had mentioned, where I was putting on the mask, because at the time that was like the only video recording I really got of the process. So I'll edit that down a little bit because it's admittedly a lot of footage. So here's that. Camera's rolling. So, right now, I'm going to get everything set up. Then, the call shall commence. So, I'm waiting for the glue gun to warm up, and then, where are the eyes? Also, I'm filming. So, camera's just kind of right over there.
It's me, I'm here, I'm real, I'm awesome.
Hey, Daddy.
No.
What? You got a problem?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so... come on, Jovanir, god damn it, you're the only one I'm waiting for! Fuck! So, Sard, how did taking this shit off make the mouth movement better?
Well, you have a different model than I do, so...
This is a newer head, I think.
Yeah, that is a 2021 head.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that only applies with the 2021s?
Yeah, because the 2021's phone is like twice as large as that.
I did not know. Alright, good to know. So, I think the hot glue gun's almost warmed up. I got a new one. Mine broke.
Joe said he's taking his medication and he'll be here soon.
Fucking bitch.
Taking important medication, what a fucking bitch.
What a snowflake, am I right, fellas?
Why is Wacky in the background, bro? What's he doing?
He's whacking. He's just vibing, bro. Let him vibe. Got a problem with him?
Yeah, I want to punch him in the stupid fucking nose.
Well, that's not very nice.
I'm just gonna punch my Wacky this weekend, I don't really care.
Oh.
My Wacky has such a cool party hat, bro.
That party hat, bro, it's insane. It looks like fucking one scoop.
The only reason I gave Wacky that hat is because there was that one image of him with the fucking dunce hat that just says horror on it, and it's like...
Honestly...
You have that image, right?
I think I've seen it at the very least.
Have you started your camcorder yet?
Yeah, it's been filming.
Okay.
I don't know how much it'll pick you guys up, but it'll at the very least pick me up doing this. So, let's...
subscribe to Sardonyx, good plug while I'm here.
So...
Business. That Charlie looks... What is happening to this poor man? He's like fully forming around the skull.
Yes, he's not on the skull.
I'm pretty sure Doctor just has his hand all the way the fuck in the head.
Yes.
Oh, well, it looks like it was inside
The eye in there.
Doctor, don't glue the eyes on the mask.
That's
Makes things so much less funny.
Oh, I don't think he actually was gluing it on.
So, should I just glue it to the mask or glue it to the shell?
Shell.
So how did you do this? Did you just cover it in tape and then glue it on there?
Okay, don't mind the fucking piece of cardboard in this image, but this is how mine looks. You see, Jester's eyes are also, like, the new 2021 stuff, like Jester and shit, their eyes are also part of the skull, but their mask frames actually have, like, really deep eye holes.
I had kind of noticed that through looking at Jester.
Yeah, because don't all the animatronics for 2021, or for, at least for the most part, don't they all have, like, a mimic of the sculpt underneath?
Yes. Like, Jester's is basically just an improved version of the normal mask shell. And so is like Mr. Moldy's, but like Buzzsaw has like a completely unique shell for his face.
I mean, that makes sense. His face is fucking bad. It's big.
What'd you say, Doctor?
It makes sense for Buzzsaw. His face is massive.
His face is not that big. It's
like the same size as normal SBI faces.
Yeah, but it's more fat. Yeah, sorry, I don't know how the fuck you did this.
What? What is that?
What?
What are you talking about?
Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Bro,
I see.
didn't they have some kind of like fuck up in their factory where they put the masks on way too early?
No, I think the sculpts were just oversized. The masks were way too big and the shells were way too small.
That does remind me about...
But like, they made the like mouths way too big, and like they have an excessive mouth movement.
I'm curious about...
reason for them to have that much mouth movement.
I'm curious about why the hell Limb Ripper back in 2017 deformed so much.
I talked to Mike, and the reason that they really just don't use those plastic heads anymore is because in the factory and in warehouses, the heads would like deform. And I'm sure you've seen those funny pictures of Wacky Mole where his face is kind of squished and stuff like that.
Yeah, classic Wacky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why all of them look really like thin and like just weird now.
This is why I will stand by that the original Wacky Mole looks less like Wacky Mole than the new Wacky Mole does.
Yes, the new Wacky Mole is much more Wacky Mole than the classic Wacky Mole. Now for the best part. And by the best part, I mean I'm fucking really nervous to put the mask back on.
So don't glue anything on, just put the mask on and
Yeah.
let's just see what it looks like without.
Alright, I'm just scared that the eyes are gonna like pop off.
Fuck it up, or you're not gonna fuck it up. That's how it's gonna go.
No
If
shit.
you guys have another spare Charlie head, you can pay me another one.
Yeah.
To get another one painted.
I should've-
Very careful, please.
It's my fleshlight, bitch.
Doctor, if it's any help to you, it's gonna be easier to like slip one side over and then get the other side. It'll just fit right on.
What does that mean?
So instead of putting it all on at once, you need to like pick a side. So either you tilt it to the front or you tilt it to the back. Probably the front so you can get the mouth mechanism in there.
That's what you mean.
While the copter's gone, do you guys want to see my new hustle pop up? Because I got a new Springfield.
I'm not gone. You know me.
He's keeping its form fairly well.
Yeah. Much better than it was before, at the very least. I'm just trying to get everything on.
You're gonna have to stuff it anyways, but
Uncle Charles.
I thought I started rubbing off the paint, but then I just kind of realized that's how you painted it.
I had that a few times and I kept looking at it. I'm like, is the paint rubbing off or is that just from how I painted it?
Like around the chin area I'm talking about, specifically.
Oh.
Like, the part where, like, the part of the, eye where it's connected to the bridge of the nose, you just kind of, like, pinch that and then glue it in place. Mine was angry like that for a while, and then I took it off because I didn't like how it looked.
Please tell him an hour inside wins a prize. I don't got a prize.
The prize is my balls! So, what should I do? His face goes in a lot right there.
You can just add in some paper towels.
Probably. Yeah, and also should I...
Eyes, it shouldn't be so bad.
Yeah, because he's... Can I glue the eyelids like that?
Yeah.
Alright.
I don't have anything.
Also...
I did see what it looked like without the sound. Just because it...
What?
Sorry, I'm not talking to you.
Without the sound?
Want a little candy?
Hey. Oh. Camera's rolling.